Maria Santos had retired from the police force with dozens of unsolved cases still haunting her, including the mysterious disappearance of 3 young women 2 years earlier. She never expected that her part-time security job at Westfield Mall would give her the chance to finally solve one of those cases. But when she noticed a woman behaving suspiciously around a car that matched the description from an old bolo alert, Maria realized that some police work never really ends. Her investigative skills were about to crack a case that had gone cold and bring justice to 3 families who had never stopped hoping for answers. If you believe that justice never expires and that dedicated officers carry unsolved cases in their hearts forever, hit that subscribe button right now and tell us where you're watching from, because the story will show you that retirement doesn't end a cop's commitment to finding the truth. The Westfield shopping mall security office was a far cry from the bustling police precinct where Sergeant Maria Santos had spent 25 years of her life. At 52, Maria had taken early retirement 6 months ago, partly due to budget cuts and partly because she needed a break from the emotional toll of investigating missing persons cases. But retirement had been harder than she'd expected, and the part-time security job helped her stay connected to law enforcement while supplementing her pension. Maria's career had been distinguished but heartbreaking. As one of the few female Hispanic sergeants in the department, she had built a reputation for tenacity and compassion in missing persons investigations. Her clearance rate was among the highest in the department, but the cases that haunted her were the ones she couldn't solve, particularly the disappearance of 3 young women 2 years earlier. The case had started with Jessica Martinez, a 23-year-old nursing student who vanished after leaving her job at a local restaurant. 3 weeks later, Amanda Chen, a 25-year-old teacher, disappeared from a shopping center parking lot. The third victim, Sarah Williams, a 22-year-old college student, had gone missing just 2 weeks after Amanda. All 3 women were young, attractive, and had disappeared without a trace in broad daylight from public locations. Despite months of investigation, Maria and her team had found no physical evidence, no witnesses, and no obvious connection between the victims other than their age and the fact that they had all been abducted from busy, public places. The case had gone cold after a year, transferred to the cold case unit where it joined hundreds of other unsolved disappearances. Maria thought about those 3 women every day. She kept their photos on her phone, studied their case files during her lunch breaks, and maintained contact with their families even after retirement. Jessica's mother called her every few weeks, still hoping for news. Amanda's father had started a foundation to help other missing persons' families. Sarah's sister had become a victim's advocate, channeling her grief into helping others. The security job at Westfield Mall was supposed to be simple: patrol the parking lots, monitor the cameras, respond to minor incidents. But Maria's cop instincts never turned off. She found herself studying faces, noting suspicious behavior, and mentally cataloging license plates of vehicles that didn't belong. On this particular Thursday afternoon in November, Maria was conducting her routine patrol of the north parking lot when she noticed a woman sitting in a dark blue Honda Civic, engine running, clearly agitated about something. The woman appeared to be in her 30s, with short blonde hair and nervous energy that immediately caught Maria's attention. What made Maria's pulse quicken was the car itself. Dark blue Honda Civic, late model, with a partial license plate that matched a bolo alert from 2 years ago. The description had been connected to a possible sighting near where Amanda Chen had disappeared. Maria positioned herself behind a concrete pillar where she could observe without being obvious. The woman was clearly in distress. She kept checking her rearview mirror, wiping sweat from her forehead despite the cool weather, and most tellingly, she kept glancing toward the trunk of her car with an expression that Maria recognized after 25 years of police work, the look of someone carrying a terrible secret. The woman's behavior checked every box Maria had learned to recognize in criminals trying to dispose of evidence. The nervous energy, the constant surveillance of her surroundings, the obvious desire to leave quickly, but inability to make a decision, everything screamed guilt and fear. Maria's mind raced through the possibilities. This could be nothing. Just someone having a bad day, dealing with personal problems, maybe carrying something embarrassing but legal in her trunk. But the car matched the bolo. The woman's behavior was consistent with someone transporting something illegal, and Maria's instincts were screaming that this was significant. After 25 years of police work, Maria had learned to trust her gut. And, right now, her gut was telling her that this nervous woman in the Honda Civic was connected to something much bigger than a routine security patrol. Maria made her decision. She approached the vehicle with the casual demeanor of a security guard, doing a routine check, but her training kept her alert for any signs of danger. "Excuse me, ma'am," Maria said, tapping gently on the driver's side window. "I'm mall security. Is everything all right? You seem distressed." The woman's reaction was immediate and telling. She jumped like she'd been shot, her face went pale, and her hands began shaking visibly. These weren't the reactions of someone with a clear conscience. "I'm fine," the woman said quickly, rolling down her window just a crack. "Just waiting for someone. They should be here any minute." Maria's experienced ear caught the lie immediately. The woman's voice was too high, too fast, and she couldn't maintain eye contact. More concerning, Maria could detect a slight odor coming from the car, something sweet and unpleasant that triggered every alarm in her police-trained mind. "Ma'am, I need to ask, are you having car trouble? I noticed you've been sitting here for quite a while, and you seem upset about something." The woman's agitation increased. No trouble. Like I said, just waiting for someone." Maria studied the woman's face more carefully. There was something familiar about her, something that nagged at the back of Maria's memory. And then it clicked: this woman had been questioned during the missing persons investigation 2 years ago. She had been a co-worker of Amanda Chen, had been interviewed as part of the routine canvass of everyone who knew the victim. Her name was Linda Morrison, and she had been nervous during that interview too, but not in a way that had raised red flags at the time. Now, seeing her in this context, exhibiting this level of stress and guilt, Maria's detective instincts went into high alert. "Miss Morrison?" Maria said carefully. "Linda Morrison? You work at Henderson Elementary, don't you?" Linda's face went from pale to ashen. The fact that Maria knew her name clearly terrified her, confirming Maria's growing suspicion that this encounter was far from coincidental. How do you know my name?" Linda stammered. "I'm Maria Santos. I was the sergeant who interviewed you 2 years ago about Amanda Chen's disappearance. You were her teaching colleague." The mention of Amanda Chen's name had an electric effect on Linda. She began breathing rapidly, her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white, and she kept glancing at her trunk with increasing panic. Maria's 25 years of experience told her that Linda Morrison was on the verge of a complete breakdown, and that whatever was in that trunk was connected to the missing women case that had haunted Maria for 2 years. But what Maria discovered in that trunk would connect to a cold case that had baffled detectives for 2 years. Maria made a quick decision based on decades of investigative experience. Linda Morrison was clearly in possession of something that was causing her extreme psychological distress, and given her connection to Amanda Chen, Maria couldn't ignore the possibility that this encounter might finally provide answers to the case that had consumed her thoughts for 2 years. "Linda, I see you're upset about something. Why don't you step out of the car and we can talk? Maybe I can help." "No." Linda's response was sharp and panicked. "I need to go. I'm late for something." But instead of putting the car in drive, Linda just sat there, paralyzed by indecision. Maria recognized the psychological state. Linda wanted to flee, but couldn't make herself take action, probably because she knew that whatever was in her trunk would eventually be discovered no matter where she went. Maria stepped closer to the vehicle, using her body language to appear non-threatening while positioning herself to react if Linda tried to drive away quickly. "Linda, I know this might sound strange, but I need to ask you about your trunk. Is there something in there that's causing you distress?" The question hit Linda like a physical blow. She began crying, her breathing became irregular, and she looked like she was on the verge of either confessing or having a complete psychological breakdown. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Linda whispered, her voice barely audible. "It was an accident. All of it was an accident." Maria's heart rate spiked. After 25 years of investigating crimes, she knew that "it was an accident" was often the opening line of a confession to something terrible. "Linda, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Whatever's going on, we can work through it, but I need to understand what you're telling me." Linda looked at Maria with the expression of someone who had been carrying an unbearable burden for too long. "You don't understand. They're in there, all 3 of them, and I don't know what to do anymore." The words hit Maria like a thunderbolt. All 3 of them could only mean one thing: Jessica Martinez, Amanda Chen, and Sarah Williams. The 3 missing women whose case had haunted Maria's dreams for 2 years were in the trunk of Linda Morrison's Honda Civic. Maria's training kicked in automatically. She was no longer a mall security guard, she was a police sergeant dealing with what appeared to be a confession to multiple homicides. "Linda, I need you to turn off your car and step out slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." Linda complied with the mechanical movements of someone in shock. As she exited the vehicle, Maria could see that she was physically and emotionally exhausted, like someone who had been running from something for a very long time. "Linda, I need to call this in, but first, I need you to tell me, are you saying that Jessica Martinez, Amanda Chen, and Sarah Williams are in your trunk?" Linda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt them. You have to believe me. It got out of control." Maria pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911, but her eyes never left Linda Morrison. After 2 years of wondering what had happened to those 3 young women, she was about to get answers. "This is retired Sergeant Maria Santos, badge number 2847. I have a possible confession to the Martinez, Chen, and Williams missing persons cases. I need immediate backup, homicide detectives, and the coroner at Westfield Mall North parking lot. Suspect is in custody and claims to have the victim's remains in her vehicle." The 911 operator's professionalism couldn't mask her surprise. "Sergeant Santos, did you say the Martinez, Chen, and Williams cases? Those are cold cases." "Not any," Maria replied grimly. "Get Detective Captain Rodriguez on the line. Tell him Maria Santos just cracked the case." When Maria realized the true identity of the woman and her connection to the missing persons case, the investigation took a shocking turn. While waiting for backup to arrive, Maria kept Linda talking, using her decades of interview experience to gather information while maintaining control of the situation. "Linda, help me understand what happened. How did you know these women?" Linda sat on the concrete barrier near her car, looking like she had aged 10 years in the past few minutes. "Amanda was my colleague at the school. We became friends, started spending time together outside of work. But she found out about me." "Found out what about you?" "About my past. About the problems I'd had before. About why I really moved here 2 years ago." Maria's investigative mind was already piecing together possibilities. "What kind of problems, Linda?" "I had been in a psychiatric facility for violent episodes, anger management issues. I thought I was better, thought I could start over here. But Amanda found my medical records somehow, and she threatened to report me to the school district." The story was beginning to make sense to Maria. Linda Morrison had a history of violence, had moved to start fresh, but her past had caught up with her when Amanda Chen discovered her secret. So what happened with Amanda? Linda's voice became quieter, more detached, as if she was recounting someone else's story. "We met after school one day to talk about it. I was trying to explain, to ask her not to report me, but she said she had an obligation to protect the students. We argued, and I lost control." Maria nodded, encouraging Linda to continue while carefully noting every detail for the investigation that would follow. "I hit her harder than I meant to. She fell and hit her head on the parking lot pavement. There was so much blood, and she wasn't moving. I panicked. What did you do then?" "I put her in my car. I thought maybe she was just unconscious, that I could get her to a hospital. But by the time I got her home, she was gone." Maria felt a mix of professional satisfaction and personal grief. After 2 years, she finally had answers about Amanda Chen's fate. But Linda's confession was just beginning. What about Jessica Martinez and Sarah Williams? How were they connected? Linda's expression became even more haunted. "That's where everything went wrong. After Amanda died, I thought it was over. I buried her in the woods behind my house and tried to go on with my life. But Jessica Martinez had been Amanda's friend, and she started asking questions about where Amanda had gone." Maria could see the pattern forming, a cover-up that had spiraled into additional murders. "Jessica came to my house one evening, asking if I'd heard from Amanda. She said Amanda's family was worried, that it wasn't like her to just disappear. I tried to act normal, but Jessica was suspicious. She started looking around my property, asking to use my bathroom, making comments about strange smells. So you killed her, too?" Linda nodded miserably. "I couldn't let her find Amanda's body. I couldn't go to prison. So when she turned her back, I hit her with a shovel. And then I had 2 bodies to deal with." The confession was becoming more horrific with each detail, but Maria forced herself to remain professional. She needed the complete story for the families, and for the prosecution that would follow. "And Sarah Williams?" "Sarah was the worst one," Linda said, her voice breaking completely. "She was Jessica's roommate. When Jessica didn't come home, Sarah started retracing her steps. She came to my house asking the same questions Jessica had asked, but Sarah was smarter, more persistent. She actually found disturbed earth, where I had buried the other two. Maria felt sick as she realized the progression of Linda's crimes. Each murder had been committed to cover up the previous one, creating a spiral of violence that had claimed 3 innocent lives. I couldn't let her leave, Linda continued. She knew she was going to call the police. So I did it again. The sound of sirens approaching ended Linda's confession. Maria could see police cars and emergency vehicles entering the parking lot, led by Detective Captain Rodriguez, her former boss and the man who had taken over the missing persons cases after her retirement. The confrontation between a retired sergeant and a desperate killer would test every skill Maria had learned in 25 years of police work. Captain Rodriguez approached the scene with the professionalism Maria remembered from their years working together. Behind him came Detective Lisa Park, who had been assigned to the cold case unit, and several patrol officers who were securing the area. Maria, Captain Rodriguez said, embracing his former colleague, "I can't believe you found them. After 2 years, we all thought." "I know," Maria replied. "I never stopped thinking about those girls. And when I saw Linda acting suspicious, something just clicked." Detective Park was already photographing the scene and beginning the process of documenting what would become a major breakthrough in 3 cold case homicides. "Linda Morrison," Captain Rodriguez said, approaching the suspect. "You're under arrest for the murders of Jessica Martinez, Amanda Chen, and Sarah Williams." As the Miranda rights were read and Linda was placed in custody, Maria felt a complex mix of emotions: professional satisfaction at solving the case, grief for the 3 young women whose lives had been cut short, and relief for the families who would finally have answers. The coroner's team began the grim process of examining the trunk of Linda's Honda Civic. Maria, despite her retirement, was asked to observe as a professional courtesy, and because her knowledge of the case was crucial for the investigation, what they found confirmed Linda's confession. The remains of 3 young women, in various stages of decomposition, wrapped in plastic and stored with the clinical detachment of someone who had lost all connection to their humanity. "Maria," Detective Park said quietly, "how did you know? What made you suspicious of her specifically?" Maria considered the question carefully. "Honestly, it was the car first. It matched a bolo from the original investigation. But once I saw her behavior, everything about her screamed guilt." 25 years of police work teaches you to recognize when someone is carrying a terrible secret, and you remembered her from the original investigation? "I never forgot any of the people we interviewed. Their faces, their reactions, everything stayed with me. When I saw Linda today, exhibiting this level of stress and guilt, I knew something was wrong." Captain Rodriguez pulled Maria aside as the crime scene investigation continued. "Maria, you know, this case was career-defining for a lot of us. The fact that you solved it after retirement, working mall security, it's going to be a hell of a story." Maria shook her head. "This isn't about me, Captain. This is about Jessica, Amanda, and Sarah. Their families deserve to know what happened to them, and Linda Morrison needs to face justice for what she did." What Maria Santos discovered that day would not only solve a cold case, but expose a killing method that had gone undetected for years. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of Linda Morrison's crimes. Forensic evidence confirmed that all 3 women had been killed exactly as Linda had confessed: Amanda Chen from blunt force trauma during a confrontation, Jessica Martinez from a blow to the head with a shovel, and Sarah Williams from similar violence when she discovered the burial site. But the investigation also revealed something that chilled experienced homicide detectives. Linda Morrison had killed before coming to their city. Records from her previous location showed 2 other missing women with similar circumstances, suggesting that Linda had been a serial killer for several years before her confrontation with Amanda Chen. "What we're looking at," FBI agent Rebecca Torres explained to the assembled investigators, "is a pattern of violence that spans multiple jurisdictions. Linda Morrison used her teaching career as cover to move from place to place, and whenever someone got too close to discovering her secrets, she killed them." The psychological evaluation of Linda Morrison revealed a narcissistic personality disorder combined with violent tendencies that had been inadequately treated. During her previous psychiatric hospitalization, she had learned to appear normal on the surface, while harboring dangerous impulses that manifested when she felt threatened or cornered. Maria found herself testifying as the key witness in Linda Morrison's trial. Her identification of the suspect, Her recognition of the behavioral patterns and her professional handling of the confession were crucial elements in the prosecution's case. Sergeant Santos, the prosecutor, asked during Maria's testimony, "What made you approach Miss Morrison instead of simply observing and calling for backup?" Maria considered the question carefully. "Your Honor, after 25 years of police work, you develop instincts about when someone is in immediate danger or when evidence might be destroyed. Linda Morrison's behavior suggested she was on the verge of disposing of evidence or fleeing. I felt that intervention was necessary to preserve whatever evidence she might have." "And you recognized her from the original investigation 2 years earlier?" "Yes. I never forgot the faces of people we interviewed in missing persons cases. Something about Linda's demeanor during that original interview had bothered me, but not enough to pursue it further at the time. When I saw her exhibiting extreme stress and guilt in that parking lot, everything clicked into place." Linda Morrison was ultimately convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The families of Jessica Martinez, Amanda Chen, and Sarah Williams finally had closure, and the community could rest easier knowing that a serial killer had been removed from their midst. But for Maria Santos, the most meaningful part of the resolution came from the families themselves. Jessica's mother called her the day after Linda's conviction. "Sergeant Santos," she said through tears, "you gave us our daughter back. We can finally bury her properly, and we know that her killer will never hurt anyone else. Thank you for never giving up." Maria also received recognition from the police department and the mayor's office for her role in solving the cold case. But the award she treasured most was a photo sent by Sarah Williams' sister, showing the headstone that had finally been placed on Sarah's grave, with the inscription, "Finally, at rest. Thanks to those who never stopped looking." 6 months after Linda Morrison's conviction, Maria made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She applied to return to police work, specifically requesting assignment to the cold case unit. "Captain Rodriguez," she explained, "during her interview, retirement taught me that I'm not finished with police work. There are dozens of other families out there, waiting for answers about their missing loved ones. I want to use whatever time I have left in law enforcement to give them the closure that Jessica's, Amanda's, and Sarah's families finally received." Maria's return to active duty was approved, and she was assigned as a senior investigator in the cold case unit. Her experience with the Morrison case had demonstrated the value of veteran investigators who carried institutional knowledge and never gave up on unsolved cases. 1 year after discovering the bodies in Linda Morrison's trunk, Maria Santos stood in the police department's conference room, looking at a wall covered with photos of missing persons. Some of the faces had been there for decades, representing families who had never stopped hoping for answers. "These are our people," Maria told a group of rookie detectives during a training session. "Every face on this wall represents someone's daughter, son, mother, father, sister, or brother. They're not just case numbers or statistics. They're human beings who deserve justice, and their families deserve the truth." She pointed to 3 empty spaces on the wall where Jessica Martinez's, Amanda Chen's, and Sarah Williams' photos had once hung. Those 3 young women got justice because someone never stopped caring about their cases. That's what we do in this unit. We never stop caring, never stop investigating, and never stop believing that every case can be solved if we keep looking for the truth. Maria's story became a training case study for law enforcement agencies across the country, demonstrating the importance of institutional memory, the value of experienced investigators, and the fact that police work doesn't end with retirement, but most importantly, it proved that some commitments transcend career status or job descriptions. Maria Santos had made a promise to 3 families to find their missing daughters, and she had kept that promise even after leaving active duty. The badge might retire, but the commitment to justice never does. Don't forget to leave your city and location in the comments below. Remember, every comment is a voice. Every voice is a change. What about you? Have you ever encountered an event or situation like this? Leave a comment. We'd love to hear your story.